Welcome to Current Affairs. My name is Nathan Robinson. I'm the editor-in-chief of Current Affairs magazine. I am joined today by Zeke Faux. He is an investigative reporter for Bloomberg News. He is also the author of the new book, Number Go Up, Inside Crypto's Wild Rise and Staggering Fall. Zeke Faux, thank you so much for joining us on Current Affairs today.
Thanks, Nathan.
Trying to bring energy to the introductions, you see.
Oh, I appreciate that. I like it.
Do you know what people are saying about your book?
I have Googled myself recently. Yes, I have to admit it.
So you know then that the most common comment about your book is that it's the good book about Sam Bankman-Fried and cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. We're referring to, there's also a book by Michael Lewis. And when I became aware of this book, like Number Go Up is my first book. And I thought, oh no, I'm writing about the same topic as literally like the most famous and successful nonfiction book writer around. I'm like prepared to be crushed. So it's been quite a surprise that, and like a huge honor that people have compared my book favorably to his.
Right, and he had a bunch of access to Bankman-Fried, but the funny thing is that, you know, he has this kind of formula for his books, and they're about these underdogs, and, you know, he tried to write that book about Sam Bankman-Fried, who appears to be, you know, a criminal fraudster, and it didn't really work, and people noticed that it didn't work, and so in the reviews of his book, you sometimes read, you know, if you want to read if you want to read a better book about this story, read Number Go Up by Zeke Faux.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll take it. And I also think, setting aside any questions about the rightness or wrongness of Michael Lewis's take, when I finished Number Go Up, I was just like, I'd spent 2 years going down this rabbit hole of crypto world. I'd met so many crazy guys, not just Sam Bankman-Fried, traveled from, you know, El Salvador to Cambodia. And by the end, I was actually less worried about Michael Lewis. And I was just like, this is the craziest adventure you will ever go on. How will you ever come up with like something this exciting to write about again?
It is bizarre. Your book is populated by some of the most eccentric human creatures that I've ever seen. And the whole phenomenon, in retrospect, and I guess it's not over, but certainly the shine has come off crypto. But I mean, when you look back at it, do you think, how did that happen? What was that? Why did this happen?
Yes, it is baffling to me. I mean, the book is like a 2-year effort to answer that question. And because when I started out, like I didn't know very much about crypto. And I'm seeing all these coins going up and up and up. And you're reading the same headlines as everyone about, you know, the guy who made $10 million off Dogecoin, or kid becomes Bitcoin billionaire after starting this new company, or, you know, Biden's biggest donor is this guy with crazy curly hair who runs this exchange FTX and he's worth $20 billion. And none of it made any sense to me. And I thought it was all pretty silly. And basically what happened as I looked into it is just that it was even sillier than I had thought. Every time like I pulled back the curtain on one coin or one company or another, I saw there was nothing there. And yet what I realized was that it was actually having more of an impact in the real world than I had imagined. So it was both like sillier and more terrible than I thought when I started out.
Yeah. So let me ask you what you mean when you say there that when you pulled back the curtain, there was nothing there. And I suppose to be more clear, I would be asking what was pretended to be true, and then what do you discover when you look closer?
So what I am saying is that the crypto industry is amazing at public relations and at spinning this story that crypto is this innovative new technology that's changing things, that's creating a more fair financial system, cutting out middlemen, making it easier to send money all around the world. Like, even if you're skeptical about crypto, it's impossible to avoid these headlines and to not think, hey, there might be something to this. But just to give one example, the Bitcoiners, who are kind of like their own clan, who believe that Bitcoin is like the one true coin, and some of the craziest people in the crypto world, they love to talk about El Salvador. I was at my first crypto conference. It was my introduction to the crypto world. And at the close of the conference, this like prototypical crypto bro, a kid in a hoodie, was like stomping around the stage, cursing up a storm, talking about how Bitcoin is saving El Salvador. And then he played a video. It's the president of El Salvador announcing in English, people in El Salvador do not speak English, to an audience of, or most people don't, to an audience of crypto bros in Miami. The president of El Salvador is like, surprise world, Bitcoin is now legal tender in El Salvador. And people at the conference were literally in tears. Like the guy on stage was bawling. People in the audience were crying. And I heard quite a lot about this experiment in El Salvador. People painted it, and the Bitcoiners painted this as a big success. You can go watch YouTube videos of them going to El Salvador and marveling at how they can buy, a slushie with Bitcoin now or pay with Bitcoin at Starbucks. Because the president literally told every store you're supposed to take Bitcoin and gave everyone in the country a $30 worth of Bitcoin on a app if they download it. But I went down there and there was like nothing to investigate. Nobody uses Bitcoin. It's like a made-up story. Even in the made-up story is that there was this town called El Zonte, this little surf town, where a guy from San Diego started teaching the locals about the magic of Bitcoin, and it created this whole new economy there. And I get there. The first store I go to, this little stand on the side of the road, I asked the clerk for a bottle of water. He goes in the back. There's sort of you order everything at a window. He goes to the back. He comes back with a bottle of water. He hands it to me at the window. So I'm standing there with the bottle of water in my hand. And I say in my gringo Spanish, ¿Puedo pagar con Bitcoin, por favor? And the guy just grabs the water out of my hand and says, basura, which is trash, and takes it away. Like he's gone. He doesn't even want to deal with me. He's sick of these gringos who want to pay with Bitcoin. And that was typical. Like that was not just this one guy. Some stores even had signs that said, we don't take Bitcoin. Like, get out of here, you jerks.
No matter what the president says.
Yeah. So like, I can't say enough how made up this story is that El Salvador did anything with Bitcoin. And even headlines that express some skepticism about this experiment really overstate its impact. Most people that I spoke to in El Salvador had no opinion about this whatsoever. And like, I would say the average person, maybe they got their cousin who's good at computers to get the $30 out of the Bitcoin app somehow. And then they forgot about it. That's like the extent of it. So that's just like one crypto thing. And I had to go to El Salvador to debunk this. So what I was trying to say is that pretty much any crypto headline is overhyped like this. And when you go look into it, there's not much there. I mean, I go on forever, but there's the New York Times ran a story that was when sort of towards the peak of this last crypto bubble. And the gist of the story was like, hey, maybe there is something to this crypto thing. Like maybe we should take the middle ground and not be so skeptical, And one of their lead examples was this app called Helium that like paid you in crypto to run a wireless router. It was going to be like this network of Wi-Fi around the country or something like that. And after the New York Times came out with this article, it came out that the company had claimed to have some important partnerships that were mentioned in the New York Times and were just like not true, And it's like, I mean, I'm not even talking about all the giant crypto companies that were revealed to be giant frauds. I'm just saying that even the ones that were doing something in the real world, it wasn't as good as they claimed.
So what comes to mind is like, you tell this story in the book of all these people being paid in crypto coins to play a video game in the Philippines. And it seems like there is a real story there in the sense that a lot of people, saw the opportunity to make money and they started playing the thing. But the crypto hype story is that like some new way of running an economy is being built or something real is being done that is going to transform, the financial system. And that is never true. And to the extent that things, when you go and you look at these things, something is happening. Usually it collapses soon afterwards.
Yes. I've been told by my lawyer to avoid the term Ponzi scheme as it implies criminal intent. But what you see again and again is a totally unsustainable bubble where that's where the title of the book comes from, Number Go Up. And the crypto guys actually talk about this like it's a good thing. And they say it's crypto speak. And it's the answer to the question, which is like, why is Bitcoin going to go up? Or why is the coin associated with this video game in the Philippines going to go up? And the answer is, well, if the price goes up, people are going to notice that. And then new people will come and they'll start buying. And this buying pressure will make the price go up more. And then even more new people will notice and they'll buy and the price will go up and up forever. And then we're all going to make it. We're all going to get rich and have fun staying poor if you don't do it too. And this just like doesn't work. It's not, we can't all just buy and get rich that way. In the end, like a coin or a company or something has to have some use in the real world. It has to generate value and real world value somehow. And that's what its price is going to be based on in the long run. It can't just be, we all buy it and if no one sells, we'll get rich. It just never works that way.
Mm-hmm. But once people are part of something like this, they have a very strong incentive to insist that it's going to keep going up forever because they need it to not collapse. Once you're in, you kind of have to be part of the faith because if you become skeptical, you could poison the whole enterprise and lose all of your money.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite ones that stated this explicitly, or sort of explicitly, was called Olympus DAO, and it was a coin that paid like 8,000% interest or something like that. And they had a slogan that was 3,3 that referred to game theory. And it was basically saying, listen, our Olympus coin is going to keep going up and up unless people sell. So if we can all get together and stay in this quadrant of possibilities where nobody sells, it will keep going up and it'll never collapse and we can earn our 8,000% interest. And so they would say like 3-3 to encourage everyone to stay in that good zone of not selling. Of course people sold. No one's just going to hold on to your Olympus coin forever. And of course the thing collapsed. But yes, once you buy in, you have to sort of become a cheerleader for whatever coin you've picked as the one to buy.
I want to go back to what you said earlier about how it was not just that when you pulled back the curtain, it was sillier and more hype than you expected, but that it was also more dangerous or had more serious impacts on the real world. Could you talk more about that part of it? Because it, on the surface, it looks just like a silly game being played by some fools who are welcome to lose their money.
Yeah. So I met early on at this first crypto conference where the bro cried about El Salvador. I met Alex Mashinsky, who was running a big crypto company called Celsius Network. And when he explained his business plan to me, I thought it was like the dumbest plan I'd ever heard. Basically, he said that Celsius Network is a little bit like a bank for cryptocurrencies. If you deposit your cryptocurrencies there, he paid interest of up to 18% a year, which is like an insane interest rate. And then Celsius would give out loans, but at much lower interest rates. So this is like a backwards bank that's made to lose money or a Ponzi scheme. And I asked him, like, how is this going to work? How are you going to make money? And his explanations never really made sense. And then I asked him, just to be kind of polite, I wasn't planning to write about him, but I was like, so tell me about your company. How much money do you have? And he said, $20 billion, which is like, even by modern standards, quite a lot of money. And it was easy to laugh at him and the terribleness of his business plan. But that money, I learned from interviewing customers, came from regular people who were saving for retirement or to buy a house, and they weren't necessarily trying to get rich quick. They just wanted to earn, admittedly very high, too good to be true interest rates of like 10 or 20%. And they'd bought into this story. They believed it. And there were a few companies like this, or several, that were promising, they were selling crypto as like a safe way to save, a way to earn interest, a way to fight back against the financial system, which is like rigged against you. And when these companies collapsed, I mean, Celsius failed last year, and Mashinsky was arrested about a month ago and charged with a big fraud. And real people lost their savings. One that stuck with me, she had been saving on a different platform called Voyager that was kind of had a similar pitch. She worked in a public school in New Jersey. She'd been saving to buy a house, a single mom. And when this platform collapsed, it was like the rug was pulled out of her. It was a huge setback in her life. It was really upsetting. And so it wasn't all, bros buying $1,000 of Dogecoin to laugh about it. These were like real people who had lost their money, real people around the world. I mean, another person from the book, I speak to a student in Nigeria who'd been saving to go to college in Canada. And when a different crypto Ponzi scheme collapsed, he lost all his savings. So I just thought it was pretty offensive the way these crypto bros were. It's not all like fun and games, and they're making all these claims. Real people are believing them, investing their money, and losing it. And as much as they would say, oh, it's on the user to do their own research. I mean, these crypto companies were also spending huge amounts on marketing. There was a 2022 Super Bowl was filled with ads from crypto companies that were basically saying, if you don't invest in crypto right now, you're going to be left behind and you're a loser. And the cool thing to do is the brave thing to do is buy crypto right now. Fortune favors the brave, as Matt Damon said.
Well, yeah, and getting celebrities who have I wouldn't say reputations for honesty, but people like Matt Damon, right? Matt Damon is like a very well-liked guy. And so when he tells you that, I'm sure there are plenty of people who think, well, Matt Damon probably wouldn't be involved with an outright fraud, right?
Yes. And the one that he pitched, crypto.com, has not collapsed. But if you went on there and bought pretty much any coin, you would have lost a lot of money by now. And one of the main characters in the book is Sam Bankman-Fried. And I spent a couple of days down in the Bahamas at FTX's offices right after that Super Bowl when things were going really, really well. And even then, I came into this pretty skeptical. And I said to him, isn't it kind of distasteful that you are taking out these ads and encouraging people to gamble? I mean, even in the stock market, day trading is pretty much proven to be a money-losing activity. There have been countless studies on it. And day trading on crypto, where most of the companies are scams anyway, is definitely a money-losing activity. So Sam, he had claimed that he was a effective altruist, that all he cared about was doing good for the world.
Humanity. He just loves humanity.
And we talked about this. Isn't it a little bit not good for the world to encourage people to gamble on crypto? And he never gave me a really satisfying answer. He tried to claim that he wasn't telling people to gamble and that they could do their own research and pick the best coins. Of course, he did not say, nor did I suspect, that in addition to taking out ads telling people to gamble, he was running a giant scam right in front of all of our eyes.
Well, I want to ask you about that because, we mentioned that Michael Lewis has just published a book on this, and he went on 60 Minutes and kind of infamously said that Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX had a legitimate business that was brought down by, unfortunate, essentially bad luck. And he still seems to believe in Sam Bankman-Fried, and I guess is one of the only people endorsing his kind of defense narrative. Is there anything to that?
So even being very charitable, I would say no. What he's trying to claim is that FTX, the cryptocurrency exchange, was a good cryptocurrency exchange. And to make that claim, what was really happening was that if you don't know about cryptocurrency exchanges, it's not that complicated. It's just like E-Trade or something. So picture an app, people send money to the exchange, and then they can go bet on all these different cryptocurrencies. And what happened at FTX was that Sam Bankman-Fried, when you sent in $1,000 and you thought you were using it to buy Dogecoin, you'd open your app and you'd see that you had all this Dogecoin. In reality, the exchange had actually taken your money and lent it to Sam Bankman-Fried's hedge fund, Alameda Research, which was making crazy gambles with that money. And when everyone started to get nervous and asked for their money or their Dogecoin back, it was revealed that the money was gone and they couldn't have their money back. And that's why he's on trial for fraud. So I think what Michael Lewis was trying to say was that had Sam Bankman-Fried not stolen the money from the exchange, it was a good exchange. People like to use the app, and it could have been a perfectly good business. But there's some problems with that. One is that testimony at the trial has revealed that Sam was using the exchange as a slush fund for a lot longer than even I suspected. And just to give you one example, witnesses have testified that the exchange took a giant loss of like hundreds of millions of dollars on something called mobile coin. And so had the exchange revealed that loss, wouldn't have been able to keep raising venture capital, and users might have lost confidence in it and pulled their money. Instead, the loss was shunted secretly to the hedge fund Alameda, which was able to withstand any sort of financial hit because it was borrowing the user funds. So just like right there, the exchange wouldn't have been a good business absent this Alameda relationship. From the start, this crooked relationship between the exchange and the hedge fund was essential to the exchange's operations. And Sam made all these claims about the exchange's top-notch risk management practices. And he was even testifying before Congress that FTX had this great risk management system that was so amazing that it should be adopted at other exchanges. And that was just totally made up. So I don't think that it's really true that the exchange was a good business. And that's setting aside the fact that it's a crypto gambling casino to begin with, even if it's a good one, you know.
A good casino. So essentially, it is the case that if Sam Bankman-Fried had not lied about everything that his business was doing, and the things that he said were true were in fact true, then he would have had a good and functional casino. But that's about all you could say.
Yes, like if he was not a giant liar who ran a massive fraud, he would have had a casino where you could go gamble and lose your money on a bunch of dumb coins that were scams run by other people.
Can I ask you, at what point did you begin to, I don't want to speak ill of your colleague Matt Levine, but I was kind of shocked how long it took him to start to be dubious that Sam Bankman-Fried was sincere. He has a quote where he's like, I still, from rather recent or rather a long way into the timeline where it's like, I still think Sam Bankman-Fried meant well. And then it's like, oh, Sam Bankman-Fried did not, in fact, mean well. What about you? Where was the point where you're like, oh, no, this is this is not an effective altruist trying to do good. And oh, gosh, he's just not that good with spreadsheets.
Well, I would have to go double check what Matt has said more recently, but I may be pretty close to Matt Levine on this, which is that as soon as FTX failed, it was pretty clear to me that fraud had occurred and that Sam had done it, right? Like the $8 billion was gone. It didn't really make any sense that it could be gone without fraud. And it didn't make any sense that it could have been done like under Sam's nose when he's like obsessed with money. He's very smart. And he was definitely keeping track of how many billions of dollars the exchange had and how many the hedge fund had. So, but in terms of effective altruism, I still think that Sam was motivated by this idea that he was somehow going to save the world. And I think that actually made him very dangerous because when he was faced with a choice like...
You mean megalomania? Yes.
Yes. So let's say they had a choice, like, should we cover up this loss at the exchange and dip into customer money? And the logic would be like, yes, we should, because if we don't, the exchange might fail. And if we do it, maybe we'll soon be like trillionaires. And that's going to help us fund, research into safe AIs. And maybe one day we'll prevent like a Terminator type scenario. So I think like the ends definitely justified the means, no matter how fraudulent those means were. And nothing at the trial has come out that to say that these people didn't believe in effective altruism. But definitely a lot of stuff has come out about megalomania. So Caroline Ellison is Sam's ex-girlfriend and colleague who ran the hedge fund arm. She testified that Sam believed there was a 5% chance that he would become president. And the lawyer's like, of what? And she was like, of the United States. Very good moment in the courtroom.
Wasn't there that quote he gave to Vox, though, where he seemed to suggest that he didn't believe any of this stuff?
Yes, and this is where I'm going to veer into, you might say I'm a SBF apologist here. So what he said is that he didn't believe in business ethics, or like he said, fuck the SEC or something like that too. And he said he didn't believe in this ethical stuff. And I think what he meant was that he had said sometimes in interviews that even though he was a utilitarian who was like an ends justify the means kind of person, he would say in interviews, but also, no, I need to follow the rules and I wouldn't want to like break any laws, and with securities regulation is important. I think he was saying those were lies. I'm a hardcore utilitarian who only believes that we should judge outcomes by what's going to have the greatest good for the greatest number of people. And he was pretending to have a more normal sense of ethics.
To an ordinary human being with an ordinary sense of ethics, a number of the ways in which he lived his life and made decisions strike one as bizarre. He lived in accordance with this code of expected value, which is like the probability that something will go well. And it seemed to lead him to take just extraordinary risks. Like he said something like, well, I would take a bet. I would do something that had like a 50% chance of destroying the world if it also had a 50% chance of like doubling the amount of happiness in the world or something like that.
Yes. And so 50-50, he wouldn't do it. But 51%, double how good the world is. 49% the world ends. I'll flip that coin. Yeah. But the thing that like doesn't really make sense about his logic is if you keep flipping a coin, it will eventually land on tails. And like it did for him. Like he kept flipping these coins and eventually like something bad happened and now he's on trial for fraud and facing decades in prison. Like, what did he think was going to happen? That he was just going to go on this epic streak of flipping coins and landing on heads and eventually be a trillionaire and save the world? Like, I think maybe that is what he thought. I don't know. I wish we could have had a more honest conversation about this.
Can I ask you a question that I was curious about, because I feel like he has a rational explanation for everything and I just don't get what it would be. I think you mentioned that he believed that like sleep was inefficient time, so he didn't, couldn't sleep because the value of being awake was too high. But then he seemed to play video games all the time. And I'm thinking, how do you justify that in expected value? It's video games. Did he have a theory of why he should play video games?
I think he would have said that doing publicity was very important. So he had to do a lot of interviews with different publications to build FTX's profile, which I think is fair. Like all the good publicity really helped build it up. But that doing interviews was very boring and that he needed to play video games while doing them to stay engaged. But you'd think there'd be some value in just paying attention. You might give better answers. Like, I'm not playing video games right now.
He also doesn't believe in reading books, right? He believes that a lot of things that we think might be important, like, you learn from books, or maybe you should listen to people. He has theories for why they're not actually valuable.
Yes. There was a good one. This is from the Michael Lewis book, I think. But he tried to argue that, I'm not going to explain this very well, but that there's no way that Shakespeare is actually good. And it's because just statistically, it's so unlikely that the greatest writer would be born at a time when the world's population was much smaller and there were many fewer writers, which is just totally illogical. I mean, Shakespeare's works are published now. We can just judge whether they're good or not by reading them. It's not like a statistics problem. I mean, it starts to take you into some like really weird places right away. And early on, one of the first times I spoke with Sam, we had this conversation where I was like very close to understanding his game, but totally struck out, where I said, okay, like greatest good for the greatest number of people, doesn't that mean it would make sense for you to just steal as much money as you can from these crypto people and give it to like poor people in Africa? And I was like, right now you have so much credibility. They all love you. I bet you could steal like $5 billion. Not that it wouldn't be that hard. And we could buy so many mosquito nets. That's a big effective altruism cause. We give everyone a mosquito net. And he was like, he gave this answer about why he's like, oh, the charities don't want your dirty money. I can make more money running an honest business. That was, it was a good question. I wish I had stuck with that reasoning a little longer.
You would just say that he said that, oh no, of course it would not pay off to steal all the money and use it to do good, which I guess, but it turns out that might have been the case.
Yeah, and the reason I believed him, or I saw some logic in what he was saying, because FTX, the exchange, which I thought was like an honest business, was valued at $32 billion. And that was more than I thought he could steal running a scam. So I was like, okay, I guess it doesn't pay to scam. Just keep running your exchange. However, the exchange was the scam. So that was what I was missing.
Yeah. While I have the opportunity of asking you about this stuff, I have to ask you, because you got up close and personal with the ape people. And this is one of the parts of the story that fascinates me the most, is during the middle of what was called the NFT craze, people would buy these, well, it's not even clear that they were buying images of apes. They were buying code, essentially, but people would spend a lot of money on something that was very close to an image of a cartoon ape. And by a lot of money, I mean a lot of money. And you even did it yourself, but although, for sound reasons. What was going on there? This baffles me.
Yeah, so we're talking about NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which were kind of my favorite part of this whole cryptocurrency mania. And yeah, because it's so weird. You can go promotional stuff about NFTs now. It's hard to believe it even was just a year or two ago that we had Paris Hilton on the Jimmy Fallon show pulling out a cartoon, like an ugly cartoon of an ape, and saying, oh, this is my Bored Ape. And supposedly she paid $400,000 for this. And the idea was that these apes lived on the blockchain, and that somehow this meant they were the future of art, and that you were getting in early on, the next Disney or the next Lucasfilm. And even though it's kind of a weird thing where, like, people like you and me, even in the moment, it's not, we probably would have been making fun of the Bored Apes, and like a lot of people were, but enough people bought in that the prices went to these crazy levels. And just within like a few months of these Bored Apes being created, they were being auctioned at Sotheby's. And I think that shows something about art auction houses. Also, because the ape people, they love to point to these things as great proof that the apes are credible. They're like, oh, it's auctioned at Sotheby's. It's like, no, they'll probably auction anything if it gives them a commission.
It would seem that way.
Yeah, or I like this one. One of the apes got represented by CAA, the Creative Artists Agency. I am also represented by CAA, so they'll take anybody. But I wanted to go see this ape thing for myself. They had a big party in New York, Ape Fest. You had to buy one to get in. And I just thought, like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I gotta know what's happening inside Ape Fest. I can't write this whole book about crypto and not go to Ape Fest. And like so much about crypto, it was even dumber than I had imagined. When I got there, it's just a bunch of like...
I don't want to tell our listeners how much you spent on your ape either.
It was a lot more than I was comfortable with. And I knew I wouldn't like spending that much on an ape. And then once I did, I really didn't like it. I couldn't sleep. I was waking up at like 4 a.m. And there was this funny part, which is that I wanted to check the ape prices to make sure they hadn't collapsed. But I'd read all these things about people who have the apes getting hacked and their ape being stolen. And I'm thinking, I think this is true. The more I click on stuff, the more likely it is that I get hacked. If I don't click at all, it's harder to be hacked. So I'd wake up and I'd be like, I really want to check the ape prices, but if I go to these websites, I'm gonna get hacked and lose my ape. It was terrible. I only held it for like 3 days. That was all I could handle.
Yeah, to go to Ape Fest. Sorry, and you were saying Ape Fest was dumber than you. Yeah, you were about to say.
Yeah,
what Ape Fest was like, I believe.
I mean, we got Snoop there. We had Eminem there. It was better than most crypto conferences. Nobody cried. Oh wait, no, a guy cried. He had purchased won a rare potion, and the ape cartoons can consume the potion, and this creates a mutant ape. And it was such a big deal that this was like the last mega mutant potion, which is really special. Some of these sold for $5 million. So this guy consumed the mega mutant potion live at Ape Fest. And I think that he did cry when he saw how his ape mutated on the big screen. So I can't say that no one cried. But mostly it was a bunch of guys who were just really drunk and stoned, standing around listening to Snoop rap about ApeCoin, the official coin of the Bored Apes.
I guess I have to ask, because you have met these people, spoken with these people, perhaps you have some insight into the psychology of someone who spends this amount of money on, as I say, it seems to me, and it's not any clearer to me after reading your book, that it's not even obvious what they're buying for the $5 million. Because, when you say that the ape drinks the potion or whatever, that's just like an animation of that happening? How do you own that? It's not really to do with copyright. It's very, very strange, like what you're actually getting for your giant pile of money. Explain to me the psychology of the people who pay all the money for the apes.
Yes. And there's an explanation that kind of makes sense, which is crypto. So crypto people, even people who like crypto, they sort of know it's all a game. Not everyone's like this, but there's a group of crypto people who know it's a game. They know essentially it's a pump and dump scheme, and you've got to get in early and you got to sell while the selling is good and get out before the whole thing collapses. And they'll buy some random new coin and they'll even call it a shit coin. And they'll be like, oh, well, I'm like a veteran shit coiner, and that's why I'm buying Dogelon on Mars or Shiba Inu Harry Potter Sonic 10X, which was a real one that did pretty well recently. And these people will say that these NFT collections are basically shit coins with pictures. And they're saying, look, I've seen it happen before. I saw, like, before Bored Apes, there was CryptoPunks. So now everyone's like, all right, NFTs are a thing. I'm going to buy my Bored Ape. I'm going to get in early, and it's going to be the next CryptoPunks. And I see there's enough chatter on Reddit. I see celebrities are getting involved. I just think it's going to keep going a little bit longer, and I'm going to be the one who makes money. But it's a zero-sum game, and whatever money you make has to come from some greater pool. And it just can't keep going forever. And it hasn't. Bored Ape prices, amazingly, they're down 90%. Amazingly, not down 100%. 90%.
Right, considering what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it still costs $50,000 to get one of these ape cartoons. And like you said, you only really own a receipt on the blockchain that proves to other people who are conversant in blockchain that you own this Bored Ape. And I ran into this problem when I tried to brag to my mother about my Bored Ape. I sent her a picture of it and said, look at this mutant ape I just bought. And she sent it right back to me because on the iPhone, there's a little button that shows download the image. And she was like, how do you own this Bored Ape? And I thought, all right, Mom, the blockchain proves that only I own this Bored Ape and not you. But like, it would take me half an hour to explain it. You probably wouldn't follow. So just trust me, you don't own this Bored Ape. It's mine.
Yeah. And blockchain doesn't really prove it if you don't accept the kind of mental framework that says that that is what ownership means.
Yes. So one of the big pitches by the ape enthusiasts is that you are buying valuable intellectual property. And first of all, like the blockchain it's not legal. So it's questionable whether like the intellectual property conveys with your purchase on the blockchain. But then there's another problem, which is just like there's 10,000 Bored Apes. They all basically look the same. Even if Bored Apes became really, really popular, they're not going to make a movie based on each Bored Ape. There will not be like 10,000 Bored Ape movies. Or like, there's not going to be 10,000 variations of the Bored Ape t-shirt, each one that sells really well. So this idea that you are buying really valuable Bored Ape intellectual property was ludicrous on many levels. But that didn't stop Yuga Labs, the creators of the Bored Apes, from raising venture capital at a $4 billion valuation, which is similar to Lucasfilm, which actually owned the Star Wars IP, which is actually popular. Like, nobody cares about Bored Apes. It was just, for a couple of years there was a lot of money to be had if you wanted to pump out some crypto coin or NFT collection.
Yeah. What makes sense to me is people who pay the money thinking that they are, or just in it for the money, who see the money going up. They see themselves as operating in a casino. They're like, look, if I pay this now, I get this thing, I can pass it off on someone else. What strikes me as totally bizarre is anyone who sincerely believes that they're getting anything for their money and not in that kind of a game.
Yeah. I mean, I think when they see, big name celebrities and famous venture capitalists playing the game with them, they think, hey, this is a pretty legit game. And they know they have a friend who made a lot of money playing a similar game. Why not me? But I'm with you. Like, I really want to know who's buying Bored Apes now. What kind of person is thinking, oh, it's coming back. I'm getting a discount Bored Ape for $50,000 right now. I mean, I think what we also aren't talking about is that in any market where there's so few items, like 10,000 is a very small number of items compared to like a company that has millions of shares of stock. It is easier to manipulate the market. For example, Sam Bankman-Fried, one of the things that Alameda Research invested in with the money they'd borrowed illegally from customers was Yuga Labs, the creators of Bored Apes. They invested like $50 million, I think, in Yuga Labs. Then it's been revealed that they also likely were the buyer of this big lot of Bored Apes at auction at Sotheby's. They had paid like $25 million for some rare Bored Apes. So there were people who had like a vested interest in making this work, who were buying at high prices, maybe hoping that would get others to come in.
Well, I always wondered that when I saw someone paying $600,000 for an image of a yacht in a fake metaverse thing. I thought, well, is this the creators of the thing? But is this like a fake transaction designed to convince the public, designed to get a headline that says like image of yacht sells for $600,000 so that the people who have designed this thing can sell other things because now it's in the news that this is selling? I mean, there gotta be, I if Paris Hilton actually paid that much money or said she did, but was actually given one for free. I don't know. But it strikes me that there's a lot of incentive to create fake transactions in order to precipitate real transactions.
Yes. I mean, $1 million real dollars or 500,000 real dollars is a lot of money. It would make sense for us to run a really elaborate scam with tons of fake transactions and fake Twitter accounts and fake chat rooms, all just to lure in one sucker to make one $500,000 profit. So it totally makes sense. The celebrities who endorse Bored Ape, a lot of them have been sued, and from people who, like class action lawyers, who are trying to blame them for the price collapse and recoup money for investors. So at this point, everyone involved has denied that celebrities got free Bored Apes. Some of the celebrities were invested in the company. I actually sort of like this idea. This is just conjecture here. But there may have been kind of a double scam where, first of all, you trick celebrities into investing in your dumb Bored Ape company. Celebrities are probably not very good at math, a lot of them. Then you convince them that it would be good for their Bored Ape company, Yuga Labs investment, to buy a Bored Ape for $400,000. You get them on both ends. I like it better if the celebrities actually did pay. And when I was at Ape Fest, their ape party, I heard Jimmy Fallon say, a Bored Ape owner, he was talking to one of the creators of the Bored Apes, and he was like, you should write a book about this one day or something like that. And I'm thinking to myself, if they were really honest about how this all went down, I would love to buy that book.
Yeah.
Because these guys are just, they're smart dudes, it seems like. One of them was, they're into like literature. One of them worked for a publishing company, and they were just like following along with this crypto stuff. Then one day they're like, hey, how about we make like Bored Apes? And they just hired some artists to make these cartoons. And within a few months, they're like on top of the world. And when they created ApeCoin, I think they were billionaires on paper. I don't think they actually turned that into real money, but it's one of my favorite stories from this whole crypto bubble. And if they would really come clean about what that all felt like and how it all played out, I'd love to read it.
Yeah. You talked to Jimmy Fallon briefly, didn't you, at this thing?
Yes. So at the time I'm at Ape Fest, the ape prices had recently fallen. And so pretty much anyone who was there had lost a lot of money. Unless they got theirs really, you still could be ahead if you got in early. But Jimmy Fallon it was very influential when Jimmy Fallon had Paris Hilton on and they showed off their apes on the show. I think it gave the whole thing a big boost in credibility. And now here are people losing real money. So I saw Jimmy Fallon off towards the back in the VIP area with some bodyguards, but I walked by and I flashed him my mutant ape. And like everyone else at the party, he pretended to be interested because we're all part of this club together, but we don't really care because all the apes look the same. And he was like, oh, cool. And I said, like, you're promoting this thing. I think it was pretty influential. And now people have lost a lot of money. How do you feel about that, Jimmy Fallon? And he was like, oh, I'm not an investor. I did it for the community, which is just kind of like it's like a catchphrase with these guys. And I'm like, first of all, you're in the VIP. You're avoiding the community. Second of all, the community is like a bunch of drunk dudes who are just standing around who have nothing in common besides we all paid ridiculous amounts of money for these dumb cartoons. Not like a great form of community building. So thought that was a pretty ridiculous answer from Jimmy Fallon.
Well, just to conclude here, I want to ask you, I guess, what lessons can we take from the wild ride taken in your book? As you say, it took you across multiple continents. You saw this thing rise and fall. It seems absurd in many ways. What should the reader take away in terms of insights into the human condition that came from this adventure?
I think, at least for me, I am not always that confident that I'm the smart one in the room or that I know something. And I kept thinking, I'd always think, oh, all these smart people are doing crypto stuff. There must be something to it. If it doesn't make sense to me, I need to keep, studying up. And what I realized was like, okay, I'm glad I did look into it thoroughly because I was able to go back and write this book. But maybe sometimes you should just trust your instinct. And if something seems too good to be true, maybe it is. And if you don't get something, it doesn't make sense, maybe put it back on the person who's trying to sell it to you and say, hey, if you can't explain this to me better, I don't think there's anything to it. But I don't know. FOMO is powerful.
Yeah.
And I can't say, the next big thing that comes around, I don't think we're all not going to want to miss out on that one either. So I'm not sure if society will have the power to resist, the next mania.
I like that. That's an empowering and somewhat egalitarian bit of advice there that suggests that ordinary people should be confident in their ability to understand things. And if you don't understand it, if just because something is confusing and the people offering it present themselves confidently and as if they're intelligent, does not mean that they are intelligent, and it might indeed. And if someone says to you, as Alex Mashinsky said to you, either the bank is lying or I'm lying, they could just be lying.
Yes. Mashinsky, I think we all knew the answer to that one as soon as it left his mouth. But it was somewhat nice to see that finally it caught up with him and he got arrested. So...
Although the crazy thing is that the one cryptocurrency that you were so skeptical of throughout the book, this Tether thing, as far as I can tell, still has not collapsed, even though it's incredibly shady, right?
Yes, it's doing great. When I started out, I was like, how did these crazy dudes get $50 billion?
Yeah.
Now they have $84 billion. And literally almost every other big company in crypto has collapsed.
Yeah.
And they're still standing. And if you believe their numbers, with Tether is one of the most profitable companies in the world. They make more profit than Nike. And it's run by like this weird, former plastic surgeon from Milan. It was dreamed up by this child actor from the Mighty Ducks. And now they're just making like $1 billion a quarter. But I will just say I have no inside information here, but I don't think it's the end of the story. I'm saving room in the paperback for new developments.
All right, so hold on, and we shall see. So Zeke Faux, thank you so much for joining us on Current Affairs today. The book is Number Go Up, and people can pick it up at bookstores everywhere. Thank you, Zeke Faux.
Thank you, Nathan.
The Current Affairs Podcast is a product of Current Affairs Magazine. If you are not subscribed to Current Affairs Magazine, visit currentaffairs.org/subscribe today and get our glorious print edition. The Current Affairs Podcast is released regularly every week on patreon.com/currentaffairs. Thanks for listening.